Whether you started playing D&D back in 2014 when the 5th edition came out, maybe you're a Pathfinder guy, or maybe you just started playing Critical Role's new game, Daggerheart. You've had a GM, or maybe you've been the GM. The Game Master, sometimes viewed as the enemy, sometimes the author, and sometimes your ally, they are the single most critical role of a tabletop role playing game. Most systems require an arbitrator, a judge, and a guiding hand. The role of the GM requires fairness, it needs knowledge of the rules, and the willingness to piece together a story for the players. The Game Master has many roles at once, and different people go about doing this in many different ways. Some might lean more into the storytelling, while others might be more rule focused. Some might have a straightforward plot line to follow, while others will just give you a sandbox and let the players dictate the story. No matter the style or leanings of the Game Master, this comes with several problems that can be very daunting to overcome. The enemy. Don't tell the GM that. He'll use it against us. I don't want you to know my plan. I want to be able to surprise you. You put that monster there specifically to kill my character. What do you mean I can't do that? You just don't want to lose this fight. These are all things I've heard at the table, whether I was running a game or just playing in somebody else's. There's a creeping sense of it's us versus him, and that can start to build resentment. The game master is not your enemy, but at the same time, yes, he is. It's kind of simple, actually. He is the enemy of the player characters, but he is the friends of the players. My job as the game master is to put challenges in front of the PCs in the form of combatants, puzzles, and challenges. If players are honest with themselves, they want this. They really do. They want to struggle and they want to overcome. That's kind of the whole point. To feel strong, they have to struggle. If they just mollywopped every encounter and blew the doors off of all the puzzles, the drive to come back for the next session would slowly start to dissipate. Sure, letting the party feel like superheroes every so often is fun. For them and the game master, giving them chances just to blow off steam and save somebody with minimal effort is nice. But true satisfaction within a tabletop role playing game comes from triumph over difficult odds. The problem the GM has to overcome is how to do this without becoming adversarial with the players. Session zeros are important to set expectations not just for the campaign style, but for everybody, including the game master's individual playing style. Stay fair, stay consistent, and reassure the players you want them to win. It also doesn't hurt to let them bend the rules sometimes to do something cool. My players always say it, rule of cool, and I'm kind of for it. You know what I'm saying? The rules are guidelines to regulate the fun, but don't let them get into the way. Timelines. Another issue that a GM has to overcome is timelines. While this can refer to scheduling issues in real life, I'm actually talking about within the story, timelines within the game. GMing is daunting. You have to keep track of NPCs, you have to keep track of everybody's stat boxes, places of interest, and character choices. But timelines are a big thing you have to keep track of. Keeping track of who they met is way more challenging when you also have to keep track of when and where they met that NPC. World events can be hard to keep track of as well. In one of my last sessions, I had an NPC show up at the very end as like a huge cliffhanger. And then as I tried to prep the next session, I realized it made no sense as to how he got there. I had already established the time it took to travel from one city to the next, and it didn't fit within the timeline that the characters were there. I wanted him to show up in reaction to actions that the party had taken, but I realized there was no time for him to hear about those actions and then also show up to the same town that the players were at. This forced me to come up with a completely different reason for why that particular NPC was to show up in that town. I try to use a physical calendar to help me keep track of events and days, but even then, I obviously still lost track of time. You have to remember it is okay to make mistakes as well as retcons. Established media does this all the time. Star Wars, Marvel. Think of any long lasting fantasy or sci fi world, and it has a retcon guaranteed. Granted, it is better not to have them, but don't be afraid to pivot. Try to give your major NPCs multiple desires and needs, and it'll make it easier to give them reasons to be in multiple different places, wherever you kind of need them to be. You know what I'm saying? I do like using a calendar, as I previously stated, and a timeline page to help keep track of the order of events and to follow along with the timelines that I have given to my players. I have a cleric player who casts a gentle repose all the time in my campaign, and I use the calendar to keep track of how many days are left by counting it out and writing it down on the day that it ends. Strahd gave them a letter inviting them to dinner in 7 days. So, again, by writing it down on the calendar, it was a way to help build tension in the world. engagement. Speaking of tension, it is a great way to keep your players engaged. It can be hard to keep the attention of 3 to 4 people at the table. The game runs better when the players engage with the story and move it along with choices that they make. The point of ttrpgs is to tell a collaborative story together. Give them an in game notice to a pending event. One way I've done this is to have an enemy that seemed way too strong to defeat stroll into town and tell the party he was going to execute the lord of this town or his head servant. It was up to them to decide who will suffer this fate. As you can assume, this caused them to come up with a bunch of different ways to try to circumvent this. This gave them a couple of sessions worth of exploration and plotting, with them exploring different avenues for success, with it eventually culminating into a massive fight. Use their backstories to keep them engaged. If there's a way to weave multiple backstories together, that's even better. One of the players at my table was cursed by a devil in his backstory. A different player was experimented on by hags in his. Well, come to find out that the devil that cursed the other hired the hags to torture the other, right? Backstories also give a personal connection to the story, which will keep players interested. I may have used the fathers of one of my PCs to attack them. And as my cleric watched his father die in an attack to try to save the life of his mother, you better believe he was never more engaged than that moment.
No. Asked again, what will happen if we do not?
He reaches into his pockets and he pulls out 2 grenades. And he goes, Strahd said that I must do this if you denied him. And he goes, I ask you one last time.
Laser cannon.
Yes, grenades are canon in D&D.
Okay. I have other questions for you.
If you everybody roll initiative.
Okay.
Everybody roll initiative.
Relevant effect. So I was kind of hoping that he had been under the effect of a spell or a charm, something, and I could.
Yeah.
And then kind of, I was again doubling on his really good check, like trying to give him.
No, I completely understand. Yeah.
If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But
Yeah.
that's the mood I'm going for.
He goes, he looks at you, he goes, if he's telling the truth, save her. And he drops the grenades. Everybody make me a dexterity saving throw.
GMing is hard, but it is ultimately rewarding. Giving a story for your friends to explore and watching them enjoy it is like a feeling like no other. Don't be discouraged. Most of the time, your players will just be happy to have a place to express themselves. Everybody, this has been another episode of Curse 20. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Every engagement that you give us goes a very, very long day. Love you all. Roll well.